Right now, I am sitting in my corner office on the 20th floor looking out at the city skyline. But 20 years ago, I was a little boy, sleeping in a storage room behind the kitchen, wondering why my parents loved my sister so much more than me. When I was growing up, my mother used to tell the neighbors that Cornelia was their little miracle, while I was just an accident that happened. For 2 decades, I believed I was born a mistake. But everything changed when Cornelia discovered I had $12 million. Let me tell you, her reaction destroyed our family completely. Before I share this story, drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. Now let me take you back to where it all began so you can understand why that moment meant everything to me. I grew up in a small house on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. My father worked as a mechanic at a local auto shop, and my mother was a cashier at the grocery store down the street. We were not wealthy by any stretch, but we had enough to get by. At least that is what I thought, until I realized that enough meant different things depending on which child you were talking about. Cornelia was 4 years older than me, and from the moment I could understand words, I knew she was the favorite. She had the only real bedroom in the house, a spacious room with a big window that overlooked our small backyard garden. The walls were painted her favorite shade of lavender, and she had a white wooden bed frame that my father had built specially for her. Meanwhile, I slept in what used to be a storage closet behind the kitchen. There was no window, just a single dim light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and barely enough room for a small mattress on the floor. Every birthday, Cornelia had a celebration that felt like a royal event. My mother would bake a 3-tier cake decorated with flowers and butterflies. The living room would be filled with balloons, streamers, and at least a dozen of her friends from school. She would open present after present while my parents watched with proud smiles on their faces. My birthdays were different. Most years they simply forgot. And when they did remember, my mother would grab a cheap cupcake from the convenience store on her way home from work. No candles, no song, no friends. At dinner time, Cornelia always ate first. My mother would prepare her favorite meals, things like homemade lasagna roasted chicken with mashed potatoes or fresh baked macaroni and cheese. By the time I sat down at the table, I ate whatever was left. Sometimes that meant cold scraps. Sometimes that meant bread with butter and nothing else. I remember overhearing my mother talking to our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, one summer afternoon. They were sitting on the front porch drinking lemonade, and I was playing in the yard nearby. My mother said, "Cornelia is our little princess. She is everything we ever dreamed of. Marcus, well, he just happened. We were not planning on having another child, but here he is." Those words cut deeper than any knife ever could. I was 8 years old, and I had just learned that my own mother considered my existence an inconvenience. That same year, something happened that I have never forgotten. I had entered an art contest at school, and to my complete surprise, I won first place. My drawing was of our house, but the way I wished it could be with me, standing in the front yard next to my parents, all of us smiling together. The teacher gave me a certificate and a small ribbon, and I ran home faster than I had ever run before. When I burst through the front door, my father was in the driveway, polishing a brand new bicycle he had just bought for Cornelia. My mother was inside helping Cornelia try on a new dress for a birthday party she was attending that evening. I rushed up to my father, holding out my certificate with both hands, my heart pounding with hope. He barely glanced at it. "That is nice," he said, not even looking up from the bicycle. "Now go clean up the garage." I went inside to find my mother. She was adjusting the ribbon in Cornelia's hair, fussing over every detail. I held up my certificate and said, "Mom, look what I won at school." She did not even turn around. "Not now, Marcus. Your sister needs me." Cornelia noticed the certificate in my hands. She walked over, snatched it from my grip, crumpled it into a ball, and tossed it into the trash can. "Nobody cares about your stupid drawing," she said with a smirk. I did not cry in front of them. I never did. Instead, I walked to my storage room, closed the door, sat down on my mattress, and let the tears fall in silence. That night, I made a promise to myself. One day, I would prove that I was worth something even if my own family could not see it. As I got older, the favoritism only became more obvious. When Cornelia turned 16, my parents bought her a car. It was a used Honda, nothing fancy, but it was hers. She could drive wherever she wanted, whenever she wanted. When I turned 16, I got nothing, not even a card. I walked 3 miles to school every single day, even in the winter when snow piled up past my ankles and the wind cut through my thin jacket like ice. Cornelia barely maintained passing grades in high school, but when she failed her college entrance exams, my parents rallied around her. They hired an expensive tutor, paid for test prep courses, and gave her all the time she needed to try again. When I graduated high school as valedictorian and earned a full scholarship to Ohio State University, my father simply said, "Do not expect us to pay for anything else. You are on your own now." And my mother added, "Cornelia needs our support more than you do. She is more fragile." I left for college with $200 in my pocket, a suitcase full of secondhand clothes, and absolutely no support from my family. But I also left with something they could never take away from me: determination. College was the hardest 4 years of my life, but also the most transformative. I was studying computer science at Ohio State, surrounded by students whose parents paid for everything: their tuition, their textbooks, their apartments, their spending money. I had none of that. My scholarship covered tuition and a small portion of housing, but everything else was on me. I worked 3 jobs to survive. In the mornings before class, I washed dishes at a restaurant near campus. In the evenings, I delivered pizzas until midnight. On weekends, I cleaned dormitory bathrooms and common areas for minimum wage. I slept an average of 4 hours a night. I could not afford textbooks, so I borrowed them from the library or photocopied chapters from classmates who took pity on me. There were nights when I sat alone in my tiny dorm room, exhausted beyond words, wondering if it was all worth it. I thought about dropping out more times than I can count. But every time I felt like giving up, I remembered that storage room. I remembered my crumpled certificate in the trash. I remembered my mother's voice saying, "I just happened." And I kept going. During my sophomore year, I met Professor Howard Patterson. He taught an advanced programming course, and he noticed something in me that no one else had ever seen potential. After class one day, he asked me to stay behind. He said he had been watching my work, and he believed I had a gift for solving complex problems. He invited me to join his research team. Professor Patterson became more than a mentor to me. He became the father figure I never had. He taught me not just about coding and algorithms, but about integrity, perseverance, and believing in myself even when no one else did. He introduced me to concepts that would later become the foundation of my career. During my junior year, I started developing an idea. I noticed that small businesses struggled with managing their data. They could not afford the expensive software that big corporations used, and the free options were too complicated or too limited. I began designing a simple, affordable program that could help them organize customer information, track inventory, and manage finances all in one place. I worked on this project in every spare moment I had, which was not many. By the time I graduated, I had a basic prototype. It was rough and needed a lot of work, but it was mine. After graduation, I had job offers from several tech companies. The salaries were tempting more money than I had ever imagined, but I turned them all down. I knew that if I took one of those jobs, I would spend my life building someone else's dream. I wanted to build my own. I rented a tiny room in a basement apartment. It was damp, cramped, and smelled like mold, but it was cheap. That basement became my home and my office for the next 2 years. I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. I worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. I poured every ounce of energy I had into perfecting my software. The first version I released was a failure. I spent almost all my savings on development and marketing, and almost no one bought it. I was devastated. I had less than $300 left in my bank account and no backup plan. But I refused to give up. I reached out to the few customers I had and asked them what was wrong with the product. I listened to every criticism, every complaint, every suggestion. Then I rebuilt the entire program from scratch, incorporating everything I had learned. Meanwhile, Cornelia's life was taking a very different path. She had dropped out of community college after 1 semester, claiming it was too stressful. She bounced between retail jobs, never lasting more than a few months at any of them, before quitting due to conflicts with coworkers or managers. Then she met Derek. Derek was charming and handsome with slicked back hair and expensive clothes. He talked big about investments and business opportunities, but as far as I could tell, he never actually worked. They got married in a lavish ceremony that my parents paid for entirely. My parents also rented them a nice apartment and continued sending them money every month. I was not invited to the wedding. Every month I would call home. The conversations were always the same. My parents would ask a few obligatory questions about my life, never really listening to the answers. Then they would spend the rest of the call talking about Cornelia, her problems with Derek, her stress, her need for more money. "Your sister is really struggling," my mother would say. "You should send her some money since you have a job now." I always said I was struggling too, that I could barely pay my own rent. It was true in the beginning, but even after things started improving, I kept saying it. I did not want to become their ATM machine. I did not want to fund the lifestyle of a sister who had thrown my dreams in the trash. When I was 27 years old, everything changed. The new version of my software started gaining traction. Small businesses were telling other small businesses, and word was spreading. Then I got a call that would alter my life forever. His name was Raymond, a venture capitalist from San Francisco. He had heard about my product from one of his portfolio companies and wanted to meet. We had lunch at a small diner near my basement apartment. I could tell he was surprised by my circumstances, this successful tech founder living in a moldy basement. But he was also impressed. Raymond offered to invest $500,000 in exchange for 20% of my company. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life. I used it to hire employees, improve the product, and expand marketing. Within 3 years, my team grew from just me to 50 people. We moved into real offices. We started landing bigger clients. Through it all, I kept a low profile. I still drove a 10-year-old car. I still lived in a modest apartment. I did not post on social media. I did not brag to anyone. Part of me was being practical, saving money for the company's growth. But another part of me, a part I did not fully understand at the time, was hiding. I did not want my family to know. When I turned 30 years old, my company was valued at $60 million. My personal stake after several rounds of funding was worth approximately $12 million. I was not a billionaire, but I had more money than I had ever dreamed of having. Then Forbes magazine published their annual 30 Under 30 list for the technology sector. They wanted to feature young entrepreneurs who were disrupting their industries. Somehow my name ended up on that list. They sent a photographer to my office, did an interview, and published a full profile that included my photo, my company's name, and an estimate of my personal net worth. I should have anticipated what would happen next, but I was so focused on my work that I did not think about it until my phone rang one evening. It was Cornelia. "You have $12 million. Her voice was shaking not with concern or curiosity, but with rage. $12 million, and you never told us. You let us struggle while you were sitting on a fortune." I stayed calm. "Cornelia, I built this from nothing. No one in this family ever asked about my work. No one ever cared what I was doing." She was not listening. "We are family. Family shares everything. How could you be so selfish? Do you know how hard things have been for me and Derek? We have bills, Marcus. We have debt, and you have been hiding millions." I felt something shift inside me. 20 years of suppressed emotion started rising to the surface. Where was that family spirit when I was sleeping in a storage room? Where was it when I walked 3 miles to school in the snow? Where was it when you threw my art certificate in the trash? There was a brief silence on the other end. Then she hung up. 2 weeks later, I received a call from my father. His voice was unusually soft, almost gentle. "Son, we need to talk. Come home this weekend. It is important." Against my better judgment, I agreed. I drove 4 hours from Cleveland to Columbus, a route I had not taken in years. When I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, I saw that nothing had changed. The house looked smaller than I remembered, but the garden still bloomed under the window of Cornelia's old bedroom. They were all waiting for me inside: my father, my mother, Cornelia, and Derek. They were sitting in the living room like a panel of judges waiting to deliver a verdict. My father started first. "Son, we heard about your success. We are proud of you." He cleared his throat. but family should stick together in times like these. My mother picked up where he left off. Cornelia and Derek have been going through such a difficult time. Their house needs major repairs. Their car broke down last month. There are medical bills piling up. I sat in silence watching them perform this rehearsed script. Cornelia could not contain herself any longer. "Just cut to the chase," she snapped. "You owe us Marcus. Mom and Dad raised you. They fed you. They gave you a roof over your head." "A storage room," I said quietly. "You gave me a storage room." Her face twisted with annoyance. "Oh, here we go again with your victim story. You always complained about everything. You were never grateful for anything we did for you." Derek leaned forward, putting on his most reasonable voice. "Look, man, we are not asking for much here. Just help your sister out. Maybe pay off our mortgage. It is only $200,000. That is nothing to someone like you." My father pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket. He had written a list. "We have been thinking about this, and here is what would really help. Pay off Cornelia and Derek's mortgage, $200,000. A new car for your mother and me, $50,000. House repairs, $100,000. And maybe a monthly allowance for Cornelia, say $5,000 a month until she gets back on her feet." I did the math in my head. Nearly $400,000 up front, plus $60,000 every year indefinitely. They had planned this like a business negotiation, except they had nothing to offer in return, except the biological fact that we shared DNA. "Do any of you remember my 8th birthday?" I asked. No one spoke. "You do not, do you? Because there was no party, there was no cake. Cornelia had a ballet recital that day, so my birthday was completely forgotten. I spent it alone in that storage room wondering what I had done wrong to make you all hate me so much." My mother's face tightened. "That was so long ago, Marcus. Why are you bringing up the past? We are talking about the present. We are talking about family." "Because the past shaped who I am," I said. "The past is why I learned to survive without any of you." Cornelia jumped to her feet. "Stop playing the victim. You have millions of dollars now. What does the past matter? You clearly turned out fine. Better than fine. So stop whining about your childhood and help your family." I stood up slowly and reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out a worn envelope that I had brought with me for this very moment. Inside were letters, 32 of them, written on notebook paper and folded carefully. I had saved them for years. "These are letters I wrote to you during college," I explained, laying them on the coffee table. 32 letters over 4 years. I asked if I could come home for Christmas. I asked if you could send a little money for textbooks. I asked if we could just talk on the phone sometime. Not one of these letters ever received a response, not one. But you always had time to send money to Cornelia. You always had time to help her. My mother started to cry. My father stared at the floor, but Cornelia was unmoved. "So what?" she demanded. "You want an apology?" "Fine, I am sorry. Is that what you needed to hear? Now, can we talk about the money?" Something in me broke at that moment. Not in a painful way, but in a liberating way, like chains falling off my wrists. I looked at my sister, this woman who had tormented me my entire childhood, who had never shown me an ounce of kindness, and I felt nothing. No anger, no hatred, just emptiness where there used to be desperate hope. "I will not give any of you a single dollar," I said. "Not because I cannot afford it, but because you never treated me like family. I was never your son or your brother. I was an inconvenience, a mistake that happened. So why should I treat you like my family now?" Cornelia completely lost control. She grabbed the glass of water in front of her and hurled it at my head. I ducked, and it shattered against the wall behind me, spraying water and glass across the room. "You ungrateful piece of trash!" she screamed, her face contorted with rage. "We should have given you up for adoption. You were always a burden. You ruined my life just by existing." Derek tried to grab her arm, but she shoved him away. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking as she collapsed onto the floor. She pounded her fists against the carpet like a child throwing a tantrum. "I hate you," she wailed. "I have always hated you. You were supposed to be nothing. You were supposed to stay nothing." I looked at my parents. My father had not moved or spoken. He just sat there frozen, staring at the broken glass on the floor. My mother rushed to Cornelia's side, wrapping her arms around her, glaring up at me with accusation in her eyes. "Look what you did to your sister," she hissed, and in that moment I understood with perfect clarity that nothing had changed. Nothing would ever change. Even now, even after everything, they chose Cornelia. They would always choose Cornelia. I bent down and picked up the largest pieces of broken glass, placing them carefully on the coffee table so no one would step on them. Then I gathered my letters and put them back in my pocket. "I spent 20 years hoping you would love me the way you love her," I said, my voice steady. 20 years waiting for you to see me. 20 years trying to prove that I was worth something. But I am done waiting. I looked at each of them in turn. My father, who taught me that hard work does not guarantee love. My mother, who taught me that some mothers have favorites. My sister, who taught me that family can be the cruelest strangers. "I am keeping these letters," I said. "Not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that I survived without any of you. From today, I have no sister. I have no parents who chose to forget me. I am not angry. I am just done." I walked out the front door without looking back. I heard Cornelia still crying on the floor. I heard my mother calling after me, but I did not stop. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away from that house for the last time. The first few months after that day were harder than I expected. Even though I had made the right decision, even though I knew it in my bones, the pain was still there. 20 years of hoping, 20 years of being rejected, it does not disappear overnight just because you finally stand up for yourself. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma. Her name was Dr. Simmons, and she helped me understand that I had been carrying wounds I did not even know I had. I learned that my constant drive to succeed was not just ambition. It was a desperate attempt to prove my worth to people who would never acknowledge it. I learned that my fear of asking for help came from a childhood where asking for anything meant being reminded that I was a burden. There were nights when I could not sleep, replaying every cruel word, every dismissive glance, every forgotten birthday. There were days when getting out of bed felt impossible, but I kept showing up to therapy. I kept doing the work because I knew that I deserved to be free. Slowly, I started building a new kind of family. My employees at the company became more than coworkers. They became friends who celebrated my victories and supported me through struggles. Professor Patterson, my mentor from college, remained a constant presence in my life. We had dinner together at least once a month, and he often told me how proud he was of the man I had become. He was the father I always wished I had. I also started giving back. I established a scholarship fund for students from difficult family backgrounds, kids who had no one cheering for them, kids who were told they would never amount to anything. Every year, I personally read the applications and selected the recipients. Every year, I saw myself in their stories. About a year after I walked out of my parents' house, I met someone who would change my life in ways I never anticipated. Her name was Amanda, and she was a pediatric doctor at the Children's Hospital downtown. We met at a charity event for underprivileged youth, and from our first conversation, I knew she was different. Amanda came from a warm, loving family. Her parents had been married for 35 years. Her 2 brothers were her best friends. When she talked about her childhood, she described holiday dinners filled with laughter parents who attended every school play and soccer game, siblings who supported each other through everything. At first, hearing about her family made me sad. It reminded me of everything I had missed. But Amanda never pitied me. She simply loved me fully and unconditionally in a way I had never experienced before. The first time I went to her parents' house for Thanksgiving, I was terrified. I did not know how to act around a normal family. I did not know what to say or do. But when I walked through the door, Amanda's mother wrapped me in a hug and said, "Any friend of Amanda's is family to us." I had to excuse myself to the bathroom because I could not stop the tears. Those simple words spoken so casually were something my own mother had never said to me. In that moment, I understood what I had been missing my whole life, and I also understood that it was not too late to find it. As for Cornelia and my parents, I heard about them occasionally through distant relatives. About 6 months after our confrontation, Derek left Cornelia for another woman. Apparently, once he realized there would be no money from me, he saw no reason to stick around. Cornelia was forced to sell her house to pay off debts and moved back in with our parents. My father's health declined over the following year. My mother struggled to care for both him and Cornelia, who had never learned to take care of herself. They tried to contact me several times through phone calls, emails, even a letter or two. I never responded, not out of revenge, not out of hatred, but simply because there was nothing left to say. I do not wish them harm. I genuinely hope they find some peace. But I cannot be the one to give it to them. I spent too many years trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it. I will not spend any more. These days my life is fuller than I ever imagined it could be. My company continues to grow. Amanda and I are building a future together. I have friends who know my story and love me anyway. I have purpose, meaning, and joy. Sometimes late at night, I think about that little boy in the storage room drawing pictures that no one wanted to see. I wish I could go back in time and tell him something. I wish I could kneel down beside him and say, "One day you will build your own home. It will not be made of wood and nails. It will be made of people who see you, who choose you, who love you without conditions. And that home, more than any amount of money, will set you free." The best revenge is not showing people what they missed. The best revenge is building a life so full and so meaningful that you forget they were ever part of it. Healing does not come from proving them wrong. Healing comes when you stop needing their approval to feel worthy. If you are watching this and you come from a family that never valued you, I want you to know something. You are not defined by how they treated you. You are not limited by what they believed about you. You have the power to write your own story, to choose your own family, to become the person you were always meant to be. Family is not about blood. Family is about who shows up for you, who stands by you, who loves you at your worst, and celebrates you at your best. Find those people. Hold on to them. And never let anyone make you feel like a mistake again. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from family members who did not treat you right? How did you find the strength to build your own path? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss more stories like this one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video with them. Sometimes, knowing that someone else understands can make all the difference. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being here with me. I hope that wherever you are in your journey, you find the courage to choose yourself, to walk away from what hurts you, and to build a life filled with people who truly love you. You deserve nothing less. Until next time, take care of yourself. You are worth it.